What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Play the Fight Song College Football Show. Another off-season episode is upon us, and tonight we had to bring in the Big 12 experts. The full team from Iowa State is here. JT is in place of JP, who is busy yet again. JT, how are we doing tonight? You ready to talk Big 12 football? This is your spot, so a lot of pressure on you. Oh, he starts off on mute. The rookie move.
Saw
I
that
was
coming.
not on mute.
Saw that coming.
Someone had to mute me. No, I'm excited to be here. Excited to be a part of episode 100 with you boys. Congratulations off the bat.
Yeah, that's big note.
Big time there. So yeah, I'm excited to talk a little college football on this May Day with you guys.
Episode 100 of Play the Fight Song is here. We will not do anything big for tonight's show. Obviously, talking the Big 12 is big stuff, but we do have a plan in place for next week to get you guys involved, and hopefully you can throw some questions our way. So be on the lookout for that on all of our social media channels at Play the Fight Pod, which is a good shameless plug to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Still on the road to 1,000 on YouTube, so make sure you head over to our YouTube channel. Let's get to 1,000 for kickoff this season, which we will include previews, recaps, all of the good stuff in between, all college football all the time. So make sure to smash the like and subscribe button today. On the other side, Jake, how we doing? 100 of these things together. You feeling good about talking about the Big 12?
Wouldn't want to spend my 100th episode talking about anything else. And I'm glad we had to kick JP out because I don't want JP talking about something that's sensitive to me, and that is Big 12 and Big 12 quarterbacks. So we had to call in the big guns, I think. Just it's no offense to JP. I want my experts talking about what they know.
Sorry, I feel like JP would probably agree, though, that out of the three of us, he's probably the lowest on the Big 12. Like I truly enjoy the Big 12, and my team used to be a part of it, so I think there's a soft spot lying there. But JP is he's almost a part of that hater fan base, that the Big 12 haters, and we cannot have that tonight because we're breaking down every quarterback on each Big 12 team, giving them a grade. We'll go through the grading system at that point in the episode. But before we do that, we got to start off with the question of the night. Before we do that, we got to talk No Rivals. Shop No Rivals, our great partner. Take a look at those hats they've been dropping. They've been adding new teams, new designs all throughout the months of the offseason. Get on there, get your cap. Use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on all of your orders. We'll cover the shipping. Get your headwear for this upcoming season. We've got the Espresso collection from Jake and I on right now. Little brown, little cream, goes with everything, looks nice. And then JT with the, I believe it's the City collection or Classic collection, one of the two. Hottie Toddy embroidered on the side in the script. Nice little Ole Miss cap with the baby blue. Shout out to our great partners over at No Rivals. Shop norivals.com today. All right, now let's go into the question of the night. Jake wrote this one, and I like it because I did send a tweet out on our account earlier this week. Let's talk college football as a whole. Fill in the blank. When blank is good, it's better for college football. Jake.
I'm just going to pick a team that hasn't had a real legitimate, however you want to say it, a legitimate national championship contention run recently, and that would be USC for me. I think when USC is better, I think college football is better. I know there's a big majority of the fan base of college football that I think kind of rolls their eyes at any West Coast football team being mentioned as a big brand in the sport. But I think it is good for the sport because I do think you need those West Coast teams to have a national presence. And historically, USC is one of the best college football programs of all time. I mean, if before Nebraska in the 90s, honestly, it was USC in the 60s, 70s, whatever you want to say. And now, are we even close to that time period anymore? No. But I still think with it being out in LA, when they actually have fans invested, I think just it's a big brand. Like Colin Cowherd loves the team. When you get guys, I know it's a little annoying when you get big heads like those guys talking about the sport, but in all essence, it's good for the sport. You want the Colin Cowherds of the world talking about more teams, talking about more brands they're interested in. And I think USC at their best has that star power. You saw a little bit of it. What was that, 2022 with Caleb, or 2023, Caleb Williams, when they won 11 games and they lost to Utah to go to the playoff. I was actually rooting for USC that day. I wanted to see Caleb Williams and USC in the 14 playoff.
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer. I think the '07 era, I have not a fond memory, but I have a very good recollection of game day, college game day in Lincoln for Nebraska USC, and USC just curb stomped us.
Yep.
But that was like when USC was really good back then and like that feared number one, number two team in the country. That is a little bit of a different time frame for college football. I like that pick. What about you, JT? Who makes the sport better when they're good?
Yeah, I think a lot of the answers for this question are going to be kind of divisive because a lot of these teams are really popular and a lot of these teams get a lot of hate. So it's better for the sport when they're good. And I think when I'm thinking of teams like that, the one team that comes to mind for me is Notre Dame. And I'm not sure if any team in the country really gets more hate nationally and also more coverage nationally than Notre Dame. It kind of plays into the conversation that we've had on a previous pod of like, can you be a fan of a team if you didn't go to school there? And Notre Dame's
Mhm.
like a big prestigious school. Not a lot of people are able to go to school there, but a lot of people like to root them on. A lot of history there. I feel like they're just a big national brand. They get a lot of different people involved. And I just know those teams down in the South love to hate on Notre Dame. And with the success of the people down in the South, like having them be able to cheer against somebody. You can just kind of see it now with the success that they've had recently and this year actually going all the way for the first time and having a chance to actually win the national championship. I just think it's good for it's good for getting a lot of different regions of the sport involved.
I feel like with Notre Dame, at least in my territory, if I know a Notre Dame fan or I meet one, I somehow learn where they either went to, grade school or high school, and it always ends up being Catholic. So it's just like they were raised in that religion, and then all of a sudden, dad was a Catholic Notre Dame fan, so now they're a Notre Dame fan. That's just how it works out, which is just another point against those stupid people that say you have to be an alumni to be a fan. When I thought of this question, the first thing I thought of was like those big games that we're missing out on and they've lost steam at the end of the year and they're still competing in those rivalry games, but would they be better if it was a 2 versus 3 matchup or a top 10 matchup at the least? And Auburn came to mind. I think the fallback that Auburn has had has kind of really hindered the Iron Bowl. Granted, the games have still been very good, come down to the last plays, but I just think that fan base within the SEC just heating up that rivalry and the multiple rivalries they have, but especially the Iron Bowl in Alabama. Auburn's got a good fan base. And I think when they're good, it's better for the sport because it opens up the SEC, gets another name at the top along with Georgia, Alabama, all the teams you're used to hearing now with Texas in the mix. If Auburn can get back to that good spotlight, I think it'll be better for the sport. So Auburn would be my pick there. And I don't think anybody's in disagreement of anybody's picks, right, Jake? You agree with Notre Dame? You're kind of a Notre Dame guy too.
Yeah, I like the Notre Dame pick. Justin mentioned it, that the team gets a lot of hate, but we've talked about this before. I think there's a lot of casuals turning a little bit around, that Notre Dame's a little bit more of a likable program with Marcus Freeman being the head coach.
Yeah. The Brian Kelly hate has been flowing recently.
Yeah. You've kind of seen it. Like, it's traveled with him to Baton Rouge. I think a lot of people, Baton Rouge and LSU, it's a fun team to root for most of the time. But I do think the casual fan has now turned its hate a little more towards LSU and to not really get into some of the off the field stuff that he's just doesn't really seem like a player's coach to me, at least from the outside looking in. But who are we to judge? I think Auburn's a good pick. It definitely, when Auburn's at its highest and Alabama continues to be what it is right now, there's nothing bigger than that Iron Bowl. But sometimes, like, the SEC just kind of ebbs and flows, like, between its good programs, that sometimes I don't know. It always feels like the SEC has 6 really good teams. It doesn't matter to me all that much on which teams it is each and every single year, honestly.
That's fair enough. Go ahead, JT.
No, I was going to say, I like the Auburn pick just because it kind of shows the regionality of the sport. And it shows, just because we're used to Bama being good every single year. So we'd like for Auburn to be good too, to kind of help that rivalry. And there's a lot of, like Jake was saying, it doesn't really get talked about as much because there's other good teams in the SEC. But when a couple of regional rivals like that bring out those old rivalries that we're used to with college football, I think it makes the sport better as a whole. You see it now with like Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Bama, things like that. And that kind of made me think of another pick where I was going to say, like, the college football is better when the entire state of Florida is good, because there was a couple years there where we were really struggling with that, with a lot of their players leaving the state and those programs really kind of struggling. But now in the last couple of years, we've seen the resurgence of Florida State, Florida, and Miami. And I think the sport as a whole is just better when the regional teams like that are doing well.
I like the way that's put.
You want a team that I think this may never get brought up in this conversation, but I do think it brings a lot of value. I think for as long as they're in the G5, I think when Boise State is as good as they are, if they become, say, like almost in essence, if they become what Nick Saban in Alabama was in the 2010s and early 2020s, what that Boise State team could be in the G5 now, and they just continue to be like the dynasty of the G5 and continues to win that automatic playoff berth out of the G5, I think it's going to bring more light to that program. And honestly, it reminds me, put it in a little bit of NBA terms, it reminds me of the Warriors back in the day when they were at their peak. Everybody was just waiting for them to fall. So if you have a team like Boise who just continues to get automatic bids each and every single year out of the G5, like when they lost to Nevada, what was that, 2008 with Colin Kaepernick, like that felt like a really David Goliath feel to it. Like I want that back again. People paying attention to the G5 and just wanting Boise to lose because of how powerful and how much better they are than the rest of their peers.
The thing that happens with Boise, though, is they actually have some history to it, just like you said, that loss in 2008. And that's like with guys our age who grew up with Boise being good, like that has real stakes in kind of how we perceive the program, where they may not move the needle nationally or like on TV or things like that, but it just adds to the variety of college football. And I think that's really good for it.
Obviously, before we go to the next segment, I want to mention I did send out the post the other day from our account. Virginia Tech would be on that list for me. I think everybody can agree a Thursday, Friday game with Enter Sandman rocking Virginia Tech, Notre Dame. There's nothing better. That's like near the top of college football.
I think the ACC just wants anybody to be good at this point right now.
That's 100% fair enough. I know when JT was talking about the mixture that we've seen of Florida State being good, then Miami, and then Florida's just kind of floating around, like all three of those coming together would be absolutely insane for the sport, but that would require Miami to be a part of that.
Supposed to be last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Florida State did not live up to fulfilling that, and Florida had the world's hardest schedule. So shout out to Florida. We'll see if they can bounce back this year, as many of them expected to do so. All right, let's go to the recent news in college football. Before we do that, we want to talk our stickers. Our stickers are still available. They are flying off the shelf slightly, so get in there, get your PTF Best, get your Ball Knower sticker, your all-important one. If you watch this show, you get this stamp. And then, of course, the show logo. Give them a look. Check them out today. Shoot us a DM. We'll get them sent out right to your house. $10 delivered. No shipping costs coming from us. It all goes back to support the show. Nothing's going to our pockets. So we appreciate you in advance. If you choose to buy a sticker pack, you can hit us up on any platform in the DMs. We'll get them sent out to you. Shout out to everybody who has purchased one already. And we want to put up the comment from our guy who's not in studio live tonight. But GA did get his stickers. Loves them. Going to get them on the car. Shout out him. Shout out you if you're going to order some here in the near future. All right, now let's go into some recent news. Recent news is pretty heavy this week. We got a lot to talk about. A lot has been announced over the last week in college football. The NFL has announced that they will have a doubleheader the same day as the first round of the college football playoff. There is 3 college football games on that, and we are going to run into NFL games, gentlemen. This is something that college football fans don't want to hear, I guess, but it's not going to stray me away from watching the college football first round. I mean, that's just who we are. But what do you think of the audience? Do you think the audience is really going to be taken away from a first round playoff between some bullshit games in the NFL? What do you think, Jake?
I wanted to put this on the outline and the rundown because it's just us reassuring you that who cares? Like, honestly, who cares? I saw just a lot of people kind of freaking out about it on Twitter and things like that. But in all honesty, like, are you really going to watch the Bears and Packers over the first round of the college football playoff if college football is your one and main priority? Of course not. So there's no need to panic. What is this going to do for ratings? I mean, who knows? I think the NFL games are going on Fox, and obviously the first round is owned by TNT and ESPN for for the playoff. So more than likely, if you're a college football fan or just a football fan in general, you're probably going to have a 2 TV setup anyways, and you'll make them both work. But it's the NFL trying to leverage its, muscles and saying, hey, we know this is like one of the biggest days of the year for you guys, but we don't care. We're going to put, I can't even remember, was it Commanders, Cowboys, and I think Bears, Packers, just like 2 divisional games that really, who cares? I don't even know if they'll have playoff implications on the line in late December. So it doesn't bother me none. And I hope that the college football playoff gets the ratings it deserves, even though ratings don't necessarily matter. And they show, hey, you can't just put regular season games on this day and expect to win, but the NFL is a different kind of beast.
Now, I don't want to make it sound like I wasn't paying full attention to the game, because obviously I was. But the first round last year, as the college football people we are, I mean, we're doing a small-time college football show here, folks. It's not groundbreaking news that we are not going to watch the Bears and Packers that week. But I can be honest and tell you, my TV setup was dual TV, even though it was pretty much one game at a time. And I had college football 25 on the other TV. And this year, it's probably going to be college football 26 and the other game, the actual game, live on the other TV. I only did that when it was kind of blown out of proportion, like SMU, Penn State was early in that game.
All of them?
That's when I was doing that. Majority of them, yes. I wouldn't say all of them. That's a little bold. We're trying to sell the sport here, Jake. We're selling the sport.
Let's not, try to put lipstick on a pig here. I mean, the first round games on Saturday they were blowouts. I mean, Clemson, Texas got close a little bit at
right
one point, but I mean, they were up 35-7 or something pretty early in that game.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Oregon, Ohio State not living up to any hype really stung the first round.
Well, that was
second round. That really stung the college football playoff in general, though. All right, JT, what are your thoughts on this? Do you care about the NFL being on TV?
I don't really care. I mean, I think the NFL is going to continue to do this just because they can, and it's probably going to drag away a couple of casual audience. I'm sure. I know Jake's kind of dismissing some of those NFL games, but those games that she listed, Cowboys, Redskins, or whatever their team name is, Packers, Bears, those are kind of big time TV games. So I think a lot of people are going to end up watching those. But if there's good college football on, people are going to watch. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, the NFL is going to keep doing this. And I'm the type of guy who, when the NFL does something like this, I'll make sure to turn on anything else that's not the NFL, even though I like watching the NFL, just out of spite, because
unless it's on Nickelodeon,
it's just greedy at this point.
Unless it's on Nickelodeon, then I'll watch it. I want to watch a Slime Zone.
I think a legitimate reason college football's numbers will never do as much as the NFL. There's a couple of reasons, but how much does fantasy football have to do with it?
A lot.
A ton. Like I mean, let's be honest. The water cooler at the office on Monday, most people don't sit there and talk about the great Alabama-Georgia game they watched on Saturday night, even though it may have been one of the best college football games ever. They want to talk about their fantasy team. It's the same people who want to talk about their March Madness bracket. Like, if the NFL wants to claim it, I don't want to, associate them with the C word, but if we're going to call it for what it is, we have to. And it is what it is. I think the NFL can have that. Now, college does have fantasy. I'm trying to find a league to play in, and I need to figure it out. But, I think fantasy obviously never have and won't be able to use it to compete with the NFL.
Yeah, that's a fair point to make. Fantasy is a huge market, and I also think it's going to be beneficial the bigger and better these games out in Ireland get for college football, because as much as it may suck as an NFL fan, those 8 a.m. London kickoffs, like expanding the game not just, nationally in the U.S., but expanding the game to be global, that can be big for the sport. So I think that being in Ireland every year will be beneficial. Maybe they'll spread it around more in the future with how big the sport's getting and how much money is flowing. So let's leave the NFL conversation there. Let's go to some kickoff times announced. We'll lead it off with the one we have in the notes. Texas and Ohio State has been confirmed for big noon kickoff week 1. Obviously, it's a massive game. I want to start by asking, do you like big noon kickoff? I mean, is that good news to you? As a fan, I feel like you'd rather have a night game, obviously. But do you like the presentation? I've always said I thought the presentation was significantly better than the 2:30 CBS slot, in my opinion. That's just in my opinion. I love the presentation of it, but I hate when Nebraska plays on it. Do you like big noon kickoff, Jake?
Well, it's reason number 500 why these TV deals are stupid and why we should just have one TV deal like the NFL does. I mean, it's Ohio State at home. Where else?
Yeah.
What else? What other channel do you expect it to be on? Like, they legally have to play on Fox. And of course,
big noon kickoff was Marshall, Ohio State at one point last year.
The first week of the season. Yeah, I think Texas, Ohio State is going to take the cake for that one, which, again, is fine because we're going to get into our next topic about the ESPN kickoff times that week too. So Texas, Ohio State to start the day. I'm not going to complain. We have some good games we're going to cap the night off with that we'll touch on, but would I have liked it to be my nightcap? Absolutely.
All right, let's go into those other time frames, and then we'll go to JT for his opinions on these first. Iowa State going to kick off the season week 0 in Ireland against Kansas State. Farmageddon on the other side of the world. That game will kick off at noon. That is in Eastern, so that's an 11 a.m. kick for all you people in God's time zone, which is the Central time zone. And then moving on, also this moves to week 1, sorry, and this is G5 game, Boise State and South Florida over on ESPN. That's a 5:30 kick. And then Nebraska, Cincinnati, also during the week, that Thursday night in week 1 is an 8 p.m. kick, Central time, 9 p.m. Eastern. That is a prime time slot that should have a lot of eyes on it on Thursday night. Friday night, Georgia Tech at Colorado will be an 8 p.m. Eastern kickoff on ESPN. And then moving on to the weekend of week 1, the Aflac kickoff game, Syracuse and Tennessee in Atlanta, will be the 11 a.m. game, Central time that is. 3:30 Eastern, Alabama, Florida State. 7:30 Eastern, LSU, Clemson. And then the Sunday games, which we are graced enough by the sport to get some, the Aflac kickoff game with Vatech and South Carolina in Atlanta will kick off at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, and then 7:30 p.m. Eastern will be Notre Dame and Miami. That one's going to be a barn burner. And then we do have a Monday game too, TCU, North Carolina. That will be at 7 p.m. kick Central time. So there's kind of your rundown. A lot of primetime slots for these bigger games, bigger teams, a lot of ranked teams floating around playing each other, all within the ABC channels, ABC or ESPN. What do you guys think of these? Any of them that stand out? I think these are all good time zones for the sport. Syracuse, Tennessee at 11 a.m. is the only one that I'm like, that could have been fun as a night game, but I like them all. What do you think, JT?
I like a lot of those games, especially early in the season. I like when they mix it up and give these teams standalone time to start the year. Not something that I like during the college football playoff when they're playing on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays and things like that.
Yep.
But to start the season, I like when they can get as much like standalone and night and primetime games as possible. Really excited for the Ohio State Texas game, obviously. Doesn't really bother me that it's on Big Noon. The only thing that bothers me with the Big Noon is that it's always Michigan and Ohio State. That's kind of my only issue with it. I like when they can spread out the good games across the day, so you never have like a dull moment or there's a blowout and like people are turning
like
the channel or something like that.
Or dead 7. Yeah, no, that's the worst.
So I like that you can usually count on that being a good game. My only issue is, like you said, like last year when they had Ohio State and Marshall as one of the big noons, that's when I start to have a problem with it. I like ESPN, how they usually can include different games and try to mix it up as much as they can. But a lot of good games to start the week, so I'm going to be super pumped for it, and I already am now, so no complaints here.
Big Noon's always weird to me when I talk about like the presentation of it. It's great, right? But I think the team could be a little bit better of deciding where they're going to go, or like, because they do their own pregame show, right? Like Big Noon
They don't hype
kickoff.
it up at all like ESPN does.
They were just following College Game Day at one point, and then they started following Dion in his first year at Colorado. They just kept going back there every week because they finally got some ratings. I just feel like their pregame show is lost, but the actual presentation and camera angles of the game are awesome. Jake, any game that stands out to you from those time slots that you wish changed, or do you like them all?
I said before, disappointed that we start the day with Ohio State and Texas, but if a substitute, I guess, is our nightcap, LSU and Clemson, that one's going to be fantastic Saturday night. I do have one gripe, and it's Thursday, that the one time we get to show off probably the best G5 matchup of the regular season, and we're putting it 4:30 Central Time on Thursday. Now, me, I'll be taking off work from Thursday to Monday. So I'm not worried about it, but we're missing a lot of the casual audience that I think we need to get eyes on the game. Cincinnati at a good time, 8 o'clock, whatever.
Is it just me, JT, or is this just spacey as can be?
It's a little buffery. You might want to slow yourself.
A little buffery.
Yeah,
give us that last sentence one more time.
I'm just going to say I understand why they're putting USF Boise State at 4:30 to make room for Nebraska and Cincinnati, but I don't understand the logistics of why Cincinnati. Was it supposed to be a Cincinnati home game, Parks, originally?
It was supposed to be in Indianapolis.
Okay. I'm just wondering, why doesn't Fox pick that one up? And that's 7:30, and then you also put Boise State and USF at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. That I think, and obviously ESPN wants all the games they can get, clearly. But as a consumer, as a fan, I want to know what the Fox game, because Fox always has a Thursday night game. I don't know what game that will be now.
Fox is usually, didn't they just get the rights though? They're probably staying away from Thursday because they got the Fox Friday night kickoff. So they're probably working so many on Friday night games that Thursday night just may belong to somebody else. And as a Nebraska fan, we don't want to play on Fox, man. I'm so tired of playing on that goddamn network. We get slapped every time we play on it. I don't want to play in Big Noon ever again.
Playing good teams on there.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to play it ever again. We were playing Indiana on there. Nobody knew they were good. And then they slapped us around. So that will keep us away from Fox.
Sounds like bigger
Nebraska. Only Nebraska fans
they
think they're cursed by a certain network they play on.
You think you're cursed by everything if you've been through the amount of one-score losses we've been through. I'll tell you that right now. All right, let's go to the next point. This one's a little bit lighter, but the Power Four commissioners met this week in New York and set a 16-team playoff in 2026. It's lighter because how many conversations have we had about this before until something actually gets set in stone? But they want to expand the playoff yet again to a 16-team based off automatic bids in a format that is as expected and kind of what the general consumer would do themselves for college football, I would say, with automatic bids coming most out of the SEC and the Big Ten, and then divvied up below that as you would. What do you guys think of this? Do you like the idea of 16 teams? We kind of knew we would have this conversation again when they expanded it to 12. First thoughts, Jake.
Well, I'll actually throw it back to you because I think this was some of the best conversations we've ever had on this podcast, is because I thought we were pretty split. Shout out to Reese. We miss you, Reese. It was Cam and Reese versus me and Jordan. Me and Jordan were anti-12-team playoff. Reese and Cam were pro-12-team playoff. So now I ask you, Cam, and this is not me slapping you in the face. I'm genuinely asking, as a fan, do you want to see this grow? Are you happy with the auto bids? As someone who was pushing for the 12-team playoff, are you happy with a 16-team playoff? Because I guarantee we get it next year. Guarantee it.
It's fine. I mean, 16 teams feels like a lot. And I always said my one fear was this was just getting closer and closer to the NFL, right? Here we are talking about expanding the playoff to almost the exact same size, pretty much. And I thought the 12-teamer was fine. I liked getting a G5 representative in. That was my biggest nitpick and what I wanted the most out of expanding the playoff in general. 8 would have been fine. When we get to 16, it's making the regular season be less and less and less, right? So I don't want to diminish conference championship games because that's a big part of college football and the history of it. And I don't want to diminish the regular season because I want weeks 1, 2 through 5 to matter. That's my biggest nitpick with the NFL is it feels like we get into these mid stretches of the season where it's weeks 5 through 7. And it's like, oh, don't worry, we have 10 games left. And it's like, good Lord. So if make the regular season matter, and the more teams we get in the playoff, the less it's going to happen. I mean, I don't want to see an 8-4 team, a 9-3 team consistently in the playoff, and I feel like we're verging on the brink of that. So I don't love the idea of 4 more.
Get rid of the conference titles. I'm sick of them.
I agree.
I
agree. And you go into a 16 team playoff, it really doesn't matter the conference title games at all, except for where you're going to be seated with the automatic bids. And I think that's kind of where the problem lies, because right now the big issue that the Big Ten and the SEC have is the auto bids, and that other teams are getting in and they're not getting enough teams in. Well, if you just increase the auto bid size, like, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get 4 teams each guaranteed. But what if they have more teams that deserve it? They're going to continue to complain. And then I'm a Big 12 supporter as well. What if the Big 12 doesn't deserve 2 teams in the playoff?
No.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with you leaving them out if you take out those auto bids like that. Yeah, you can throw in the champions and give them auto bids, but then make the rest just the best teams in the country. Because then if there's more Big 12 teams that deserve it, I want them to have a shot. And then I don't want them to throw in teams just because they're getting an auto bid and then hear the Big 10 and the SEC bitch about it and then change the system all again and just keeps on in this endless loop.
If you, as an Iowa State fan, speaking solely from Iowa State, if you get 2 auto bids from the Big 12, if I'm right, Yormark, I'm sprinting my ass to Indianapolis or wherever they sign this deal, and I'm putting that thing in ink. If the Big 12 can get 2 teams every single year, most people would off it like, well, SEC and the Big 10, 4 teams each. That's fine. But guess who's going to be pissed? The 6th Big 10 team, SEC team, when there's another Big 12 team that gets penned in every year. Maybe, just maybe, you can walk yourself into a 3rd team being in there. I think it seems to me, or maybe the casual, it seems like the Big 10 and the SEC are getting what they want. But I think the ACC and the Big 12 win a little bit here. Maybe that's naive for me to say. I think they win a little bit here. You can guarantee 2 teams from the Big 12 in every year, or maybe another at-large SEC. I think that's a win.
It's a win in the short term, but it's just expanding the issue that we're currently having. I mean, it's just going to dilute the argument. Same thing that changed from the 14 playoff to the 12 team, where you're arguing about who's 5 and 6. Now you're arguing who's 13 and 14. Now we're going to be arguing like who's 20, and it's just going to be annoying.
I feel like the conversation going around most media platforms about the college football playoff is, when does this just become March Madness, right? With the amount of teams that you have, when do you just have the top 64 teams in there and you're just like, hey, duke it out. We'll only play 4 or 5 conference games, and then whoever's got the best record, let's just go. And that's what we want to avoid. Obviously, they're being over dramatic there, but good Lord, they're diminishing the regular season.
Well, they're trying to get in 80 teams in March Madness. So
your favorite tournament.
Lord,
all right. Not. That is the college football playoff talk this week. We'll keep you updated as decisions are made. Obviously, we expect it to go to 16 teams here coming in 2026, but we will stay tuned for more on that. Let's go to the last point. This one just happened about an hour ago. Bret Bielema extended at Illinois through 2030, through the 31 season, $7.7 million annually. Good raise, decent raise for a guy that's going to have a top 20 preseason ranked Illinois squad this year. Guy who's done a lot with their roster and that program. Obviously, it's a smart move for Illinois and smart move for Bielema himself to sign that deal before they go into this season with all the expectations around him. Good decision. Do you like Bret Bielema? And I mean, does he get to the end of his contract, I guess, through this extension? What do you think, JT?
I think it's a good extension for both parties, just like you said, especially with the high expectations coming in this year, because if he does bad, then he's not going to be valued near as much. And if he does well, he's probably going to try to argue for a bigger contract anyways. But I think he's earned it over the last couple of years. Illinois has been a sneaky good team in the Big Ten. And if you're a good team in the Big Ten, if you're competitive, that's just kind of the going rate right now. If I had to guess, if gun to my head, I would say he's not going to make it to the end of his contract, especially now in the Big Ten with some expectations. If you don't live up to that, that usually means repercussions. So unless Illinois is going to be okay with them maybe sitting around that 500 mark, that's their history. They'll probably have some good seasons here and there, but I wouldn't expect them to be up towards that top tier every single season. So it's just kind of if Illinois is going to be okay with that. And I guess we'll have to wait and see on that.
Bielema just seems like such a Big Ten guy. I just don't see Illinois as a program being able to go out and pay like that big name coming out of the G5 or an SEC guy. Like, I just don't see them being able to be a hot spot enough to do that. So it's a smart extension on both parts. Jake, what do you think about it?
Well, since Bielema has been around, they are coming off a 10 season last year. And if you guys remember, right? And
last chance for the mic, didn't work out. Let's unplug and give it another try, because we want to hear your thoughts. We don't want this BS that's happening.
I know how you were saying you're not sure if Bielema, if Illinois can afford someone like Bielema, or if go out and get like a hotshot new coach. I kind of feel like all the teams in the Big Ten and the SEC now kind of have this hubris about them that they think they can do whatever they want. So that's kind of
Fair
why
enough.
I say I'm not sure he's going to make it to the end of his contract, because with the money flowing through those conferences right now, I think we could see coaching moves a lot more similar to professional sports where we're already seeing it, and we could just get used to a lot of change in those two conferences.
And just so people understand the money a little bit more, I was listening to a Nebraska version or a Nebraska media forum, and they were talking about the contract money coming from TVs and how it's progressed. And, Nebraska used to get $32 million a year when back in the Big 12 days, they made the move to the Big 10. And that went up a little bit. Just to tell you how big the money's gotten, how extensive it's gotten, that contract from the Big 10 this year for their TV rights is $75 million. So they're getting, these Big 10 and SEC teams are getting their money's worth. But Jake, let's hear your thoughts briefly on Brett Bielema.
Yeah, YouTube might see me crash out here and just throw my mic across the room.
You sound so good.
I was going to say,
great.
it's a good move. If you didn't hear me the first time, they won 8 games in 22. They coming off of a 10-win season last year. And guess the last time Illinois had won more than 8 football games? Guess what year?
2007?
Bingo. You got it right on the dot. Look at you, Camden. They haven't won more than 7 games since 2007. So if they're going to do the, 5-7, then 8-5, then 5-7 and 10-3, it's right exactly what Justin just talked about. Recalibrate your expectations. If you're going to take an 8-win season every other year, I think if you're Illinois, that's something you're going to be okay with. But college football fans kind of get crazier by the year.
Yeah, that's definitely something that college football fans have a big problem with, but they make the sport what it is. So shout out you, stay crazy. That's it for recent news. Let's go on to the point of tonight's show. Before we do that, we want to take a break, stop, remind you to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. If you're just tuning in, follow us on all platforms at Play the Fight Pod. Shop No Rivals, our great partners, all of their awesome collegiate headwear. We're all wearing them right now. Use code PTFS at checkout for free shipping, and hit us our DMs on any platform, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you got, and get your sticker pack. You got the show logo, the all-important ball knower sticker, and the PTFS tab for all of your podcasting needs for college football. We got you, and we got you on the sticker front. All right, let's go to grading the Big 12 quarterbacks. This is going to be a fun topic. We're going to go through the list, give our grades, and if we have the drastic difference, we'll give a slight reason as to why. Let's start off in the middle. This is obviously an important topic to you too, so I'm going to go to you first, Jake, and then we'll go to JT, and I will give my grade. We'll see where the difference lies. Let's go with the first name being one that's high on some, mid on the others. Let's talk Behren Morton over at Texas Tech.
So we're all just going to give our grades, and then
give your grade.
All right, and I'm talking about this season. We're kind of like leaving the past out of it, and where the team is sitting at.
I'll tell you where. Let me do this. I'll do it better. I'll tell you where he was last year and statistically, and then you can tell me based off of last year, heading into this year, he's at this grade. That's the guidelines for this. Last year, 3,300 yards, 27 touchdowns, 8 picks, and a 56.0 QBR. What's his grade?
I think at this point he's a B for me. A guy who's battled injury in his last few years, has kind of been in and out of the lineup. I think when he's healthy and at his best, I do think Texas Tech can easily win this league. We clearly talk about their transfer class all the time. And, we heard like Nico Maliava was kind of rumored there when he left Tennessee to go to Texas Tech. And there were some other names. And clearly Texas Tech could have paid for a quarterback. But I think they trust Morton. There's a few other guys in that room that I think if it doesn't work out, they could make a change to. But for right now, Behren Morton seems like the guy. He's the highest. I believe he's the highest rated quarterback to ever commit to Texas Tech, and that's over Patrick Mahomes. So definitely kind of almost a blue chip guy, and it's kind of his last chance to, I think, culminate his up and down Red Raider career. But I think what he's done so far, he's won a lot of games. So I still got to give him a B effort for that.
Where'd you have him, JT?
I've got him as a B as well. I kind of ranked mine in the tiers where I didn't want to rank too many guys on each tier, so I've got him as like the highest of Bs, a B plus. For me, if I had to put it like that, just like Jake said, he had a really good season last year. Obviously, Texas Tech had a pretty good year, finishing in that top half of the Big 12. He was one of those players that I go to like every single Iowa State game. He was one of those players that when I saw in person, made me a little nervous as an Iowa State fan watching him out there. I just kind of believe in what they got going on. And obviously with the hype that Texas Tech has coming into this year, we'll see if he'll be able to replicate what he did last year with a little different weapons that they got. But I think he's just a good, trusty quarterback that when he's out there, you don't really have too many complaints.
I had him as a B as well. So B's across the board for Behren Morton from us. I just think a lot of the hype that I'm seeing, different power ratings from different media forms are coming from their transfer class and the weapons they got. But really, until we see a product, how can you move him up to an A tier, right? They're going to compete for the conference on paper, but Lord knows how many quarterback issues has Texas Tech run into with injury? Tyler Shug, right? So who knows what he's going to be? But right now, on paper, with what he did last year and the weapons they're bringing in, he's a B-list quarterback. That could easily be an A, and it could easily be a C. It's really smack dab in the middle. I really don't see it until we see a product on the field from this Red Raiders team. Jake?
And I was going to say, I could not remember who they brought in, so I looked it up. You guys remember the name Mitch Griffiths? Started a few games at Wake Forest. So them bringing him in kind of made me a little confused a little bit. I actually think he was the first one to commit to this transfer portal class for Texas Tech. A guy with starting experience, it's like, is this a guy that's just going to come in and compete for the job?
That's a safety net.
I wonder how much. You think so, or is it kind of like a competition thing? I kind of read into it as I don't know. I think Morton's the guy clearly, but
I don't think they have any plans on moving off him. That's for sure.
It's a big year for Texas Tech. I think there's a lot of pressure on everybody.
That would be. He was a team captain last year, so starting a guy that comes in off that would be it's got to be a depth piece. Joey McGuire saved my ass. I'm not going to have the Tyler Shuck thing happen again. I think that would be the idea behind that move. All right, let's go down to the next name. Let's go backwards this time. I want to hear JT first, and then we'll go to Jake, and then I'll round it out. The Big 12 guys are here for a reason. Let's talk Noah Fifita over at Arizona. What do you guys think on him? Obviously lost a big weapon. What grade are you giving him heading into 2025, JT?
I've got Fifita down in my D tier. He was a guy that I was really high on going into last year. Obviously had the really good 2023 season. So I had a lot of expectations on Arizona last year. They were actually one of the teams that I took their over and wins that kind of came back to bite me. I just feel like if you're going off of based on what he's done and kind of trying to grade out how this season's going to go, I don't really see how he's going to have a better season coming into this year. Last year was really disappointing. I think he only had one more touchdown and interception. I don't have the actual stats.
No,
last year, 2,958 yards, 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions for a 54.5 QBR.
It was 18-12. I just anticipated it to be a lot better. I thought he was going to be up in that A class of quarterbacks in the Big 12 when they made that jump. And seeing the season that Arizona had last year, this year losing McMillan, I have a lot of skepticism around him for sure.
Out of the starting quarterbacks from last year returning, it was the worst touchdown to interception split out of the ones returning and expected to start this year. So it's not a dumb point to say. What do you have him rated as, Jake? Or graded?
I thought I was going bold, but Justin went bolder and gave him a D. I have him C. I have
a lot of good quarterbacks in this conference.
There are a lot of good quarterbacks, but we could put a lot of guys in C. We'll get to it. Maybe there's no D's and F's in this class, but apparently Justin's got one D.
Some D's.
I'm fine with it. Justin, you mentioned his TD interception ratio, 18-12. He was 25-6 2 years ago. So he obviously took a big drop off. That receiving core took a drop off last year, and it was really just T-Mac or nothing. There was no number 2 option. Now you take the number 1 option away. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe he doesn't have to look his way every single time now, and he can expand his options. Still really struggling with what they got at offensive line. It was bad a year ago. And I don't think they made any giant moves over the transfer portal. I think they just brought in a ton of new bodies, and they're just trying to patch this together. And Brent Brennan's trying not to get fired in year 2. I just think Fifita, he lacks just kind of awareness like maybe a pro prospect would.
I think we saw some issues with Fifita his freshman year, right? Of some decision-making things that were questionable. And then last year, it almost had like a Michigan State level Jonathan Smith feel where they just opened that thing up when things started to go south. They're like, we're going to have McMillan be the number 1 pick. That was what it felt like. And so I don't look too far into the interceptions from last year, but it's obviously a question on my mind. I have him as a C as well. I think losing that weapon's obviously a massive point, like Jake said. So we'll see where he goes. But right now, he is in the middle at the highest point of this conference when it comes to quarterbacks, if not on the low end. So I think C and D is exactly where he should be. So we'll leave it at that. That is where we have him. Let's go to the next name. Let's go to one that's going to be in a new uniform. Let's talk Tavian Jackson over at UCF last year for Indiana. 349 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 57.0 QBR. He played behind Curtis Rourke and the playoff-bound Indiana Hoosiers. Obviously, he will be replacing KJ Jefferson, kind of ish. They benched him later in the year. What do we think on him? Where are you going to grade him? It's obviously a new face, new name within your conference. Jake.
Yeah, this would be the guy that would get let's just go D. I don't know if anybody's worth an F here. He would be my lowest graded guy. A dude who doesn't have a ton of experience, kind of got benched, or I guess he was supposed to be in competition with Curtis Rourke last year. Who knows? Maybe he could have had a good year, and he just got caught in an iffy situation where Curtis Rourke just became one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten that we didn't see coming. So I think there's maybe some upside still there left, but the limited film that we have of him, it's in some bad games with a bad team and in some scrub time with like scrub stats. So I mean, he's got athleticism. I think he could be something, but UCF is in general just seems like a lost cause for me this year.
I feel like one of these I should go first, so it doesn't sound like I'm piggybacking off the Big 12 guys, but I have him as a D as well. And that's because of the question marks we obviously have lying with just general experience, right? Can he come in and plug and play in a UCF team that really lost a lot from expectations that didn't pan out already? So what can we expect from a UCF team with a new face behind the helm? He does have athleticism. He can run a little bit. And he wasn't bad. He was coming into games that were twos across the board on both sides of the ball majority of the time, like 66-0 games against Purdue, the 56-7 Nebraska routing. You know, when Rourke went down, he stepped up and played in the game, and he played decently well against Washington. But too many question marks. So you can't put him in the C. He's not in the middle of this conference. You just don't know yet. So I have him as a D, but there is a little bit of upside potential. What do you think, JT, on Tavian Jackson?
Yeah, I want to preface this just by saying I think anything can happen in the Big 12. Obviously, I think we're all pretty aware of that. I mean, you look at last year's rankings, not to give away what some of our rankings are going to be today, but coming into last year, Sam Leavitt was one of the lowest graded quarterbacks coming into the conference, and we all saw the season that he had. So, I mean, I've got Tavian. I've got him as a D as well. I've got him as my lowest rated quarterback coming into this year just because of the unknowns with him and the unknowns of that UCF system. Having Scott Frost out there, who really knows how that's going to go.
Who the hell is that?
It's going to be an uphill battle for him, and not to say it's not possible, but I just can't really put him ahead of any other guys in the conference right now.
All right. I think that's a good place. We all have them as D's across the board, a lot of question marks, so probably expected to there. All right, going on to the next name. Let's talk a bigger name within the conference per se. Let's talk Avery Johnson. Where do you have Avery Johnson on your list? What grade does he have? Last year, 2,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 picks, and a 69.7 QBR, which ranked 42nd in the country. Where do you have him, Jake?
It's a B for me. Inconsistent. You know,
they're going to hate that.
Who's going to let the Iowa State guy tell him where he's at? But it's the inconsistent turnovers for me that he's got to correct, that I think he lacked compared to his peers in the conference. You know, Rocco, Sawyer, who's the other guy? Sam Leavitt, that I was blanking on. I think what separates those three from Avery right now is the turnover issues. If he can clean it up this year, that's the team that can win the conference. There's no question. But from what I've seen, I just can't put him in that A potential. He's got an A ceiling, but we feel like we've been just talking about the ceiling forever.
That's a really good way to break it down. I have him as a B, and literally on my notes, I have a parentheses plus. because of the potential, because of the upside. And we've talked about it all the time, but the inconsistency we've seen out of him. First, it was turnovers. Sometimes it was throwing the football. But the way he can run, if this Kansas State game can get him some weapons on the outside, some additional weapons, and they can kind of get that system flowing the way they want it to, which they just haven't been able to do. And last year, especially, they couldn't do at times. He can be really good and statistically jump off the page because of the way he can run the football and the dual threat he is. So I have him as a B plus. We're not offering the pluses, but that's where I'd have him, very near an A. I mean, high ceiling, but it's almost time to reach your ceiling. You're a junior, Avery. Where are you having JT?
I'm not sure how much carryover we have
JT's
from our
got
Iowa
a
State
D.
podcast to this one, but I was going to ask Jake. I was like, where do you think I have him? I was
Justin's got him as a D.
very, very critical of Avery Johnson last year, but I actually have him as an A.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I'm hearing two different
what?
sides of the story here from the Iowa State team. We
Yeah, I
got
get
a B and an
Every
A.
time Avery Johnson turns the ball over, I feel like I get a text from Justin.
Yes, and that's because of the amount of hype that I think is around him. So I'm obviously hypercritical of it. I don't think he's the best quarterback in the conference, but I obviously think he's up there at that top tier. I think a lot of the criticism comes from him because of his recruitment and because of the hype around him. If he was an unknown guy coming into Kansas State, I think we'd view him very differently. Obviously, he had his inconsistencies last year, and that kind of led to Kansas State not reaching their full potential. But when Avery Johnson's on, I have a hard time saying there's any other quarterback in the conference who is better than him at that moment.
Let me ask you this. I should have prefaced the entire segment with this, but the grading system we're going on, obviously A, B, C, D, and F if you feel inclined to give somebody an F. But S as above an A, standing for superior, coming from our boy GA, AWL. Would you put Avery Johnson in the S tier or keep him in the A?
No, he is not in the S tier for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
I don't
perfect.
think.
just
I
wanted to
think
make
that's
clear
got
that there
to.
is that tier available.
There's got to be a high level of potential and production, I think, to hit there, which he hasn't quite hit. But I would still have him up there in the A tier with some of the best quarterbacks in the conference.
Is that true though? Can you tell the people, were you all over him when he's turning the ball over?
Oh,
It sounds like
abs-
Jake expected you to give him a D and you gave him an A. I mean, that's quite the bad guess there.
I was calling him a pumpkin all year round, is what we ended up calling him, because just some of the no, it's just he's a square. I don't know. You couldn't rely on him. He wasn't as good as people thought, and that was just me.
He just
being
gave away a
a-
purple Lamborghini. He just
I thought
gave
it
a
was
lady a
Cinder-
purple
Cinderella.
He
Lamborghini.
shouldn't have a Lamborghini. Was my issue.
Well, he doesn't.
had
He
a
gave it away.
Lamborghini,
Yeah.
He should have been in the S tier.
He's all
so that's
football
where
now.
that's
all
where my
football.
criticism was coming from. I expect him to be better this year. I expect him to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the conference. So we'll see how that plays out.
Shout out Avery Johnson. You can get your Avery Johnson lemonade at your nearest Hy-Vee in the Manhattan area. He does have his own lemonades. So once you get your name on a lemonade, you can talk smacks on yourself, JT. But all right, let's go to the next name. Let's move on to another one that's floating around and possibly should be talked about more. How about Sawyer Robertson over at Baylor? This is a guy that was pretty high on a lot of power rankings out there for people. Where do you have him, Jake?
He's an A. It's an easy A. Just the way he played down the stretch was a top 15 quarterback in college football. I don't really even see an argument there. There was a terrible post on Twitter last week. I'll just call him out. I think it was like Sleeper College Football thread or Reddit thread or something. Had him at 9.
Sleeper college football. Yep.
In the Big 12. You just made your point that you don't watch football, apparently. So, yeah, Sawyer, his arm talent is one of the best, and I think that he could take this to another level this year for Baylor. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
I actually have Sawyer Robertson in the S tier going into 2025. I think this is possibly the best quarterback in the conference, one that's not talked about in college football enough. The 7th rated QBR in the country last year. 28 touchdowns, 8 picks. Why wouldn't he build on that? From a team that, Dave Aranda was talked to be coaching for his job, right? And all of a sudden, here comes a Baylor team. They roll out a 6'4" quarterback who has a hell of a season. I expect him to take a step forward in 2025 and have a similar year, if not better. So I have him in the S tier within this conference headed into 2025. Where do you have him, JT?
Sawyer Robertson obviously had a really good season last year. Big surprise to us all, which I could see you putting him in the S, but I just have him in the A tier. He was obviously one of the big surprises last year. One of the pleasant surprises, helped Baylor stay afloat, kind of kept Dave Aranda as
Didn't
the
start
head
the
coach
year.
over there. So I think that kind of speaks volumes just to how good of a season that he had last year and the expectations going into this year. And if you don't believe me, ask the guys down in Oklahoma, because some of the reports that they came out about the bag that they were trying to give him to try to lure him away from Baylor just shows how good of a player that he is, and that some of the top tier programs with the top tier NIL packages were trying to go out and get him.
All right, let's leave Baylor there. Let's move on to the next team. Any disagreement there, Jake? I should obviously give you a chance. I mean, obviously, no, you're fine with them being at the top. You see him in
I
S
think
or A?
S is a little extreme coming off an 8-win season, but I'm not going to say you're completely wrong. I think a lot of people have him as a top 10 quarterback in college football. So that sounds S tier to me.
All right, let's go to the next one then. Let's talk TCU and Josh Hoover. Hoover's going into his junior year. Last year, hell of a season, 3,949 yards, 27 touchdowns, 11 picks, and the 28th ranked overall QBR at 73.9. Where do you have Josh Hoover for the Horned Frogs, Jake?
I mean, almost 4,000 yards. You can't be anything less than a B if you're throwing for almost 4,000 yards. Now, I know TCU didn't have the season they really wanted last year, and that's understandable, but I think the talent with Josh I think he's got a higher upside than a lot of these quarterbacks do in this conference, and I don't think he gets talked about enough. But we'll see if TCU can even run the ball just even a smidge. If they can run the ball a little bit and get him some help, this is a team that could be almost a dark horse to win the league for a reason. He's done everything that he can. Going to have to replace some good receivers. I think it was the Williams kid and the Jake Beck kid that they got to both replace that were really good. But I think TCU will be just fine in the passing category. We'll wait to see on everything else.
JT, where do you have him?
I've actually got Josh as an A. I don't think you can argue with throwing for almost 4,000 yards and almost 30 touchdowns. I think they were really limited in kind of the guys around him, especially if their run game, where you can kind of point to and maybe say some of those numbers that he had were inflated just by how much they were throwing the ball. But I kind of look at that as TCU was a pretty good team last year, a little underrated, I think they spent a couple weeks in the top 25, or they're right there on the border at one point. And that was kind of all fueled by him and that high-powered offense that they had. And yeah, just kind of an underrated guy where I feel like this year TCU could make a lot of noise if he has a good season again.
What do you got, Jake?
No, go ahead. Sorry. Wait, you make your point.
I have him as a B with the same parentheses plus I gave Avery Johnson. And it's because of the turnover numbers. Obviously, when you're throwing the football that much, you're going to have some interceptions in there. I didn't expect it to be a 0. But when you hit double digits, you start flirting with, is there a decision-making issue? Is he trying to force some things just to get the offense down the field? He's still elite. He still has I'd like to see him use his legs a little bit more. I think he can rather than he shows, but they've tried to make him this pocket presence. I think if you let him open it up, run the ball a little bit more, step up on the offensive line because he got sacked a few times, then he can really be in that A to maybe even flirting with the S list here in this league. I like his ceiling. He's still got a couple of years left, but obviously a name to watch. And a B plus is where I would put him, but I'll have him down as a B on our scale. Go ahead with your point, Jake.
Well, I was just going to try and I don't know what we're at for time here, but I can make this go a little faster. But let me ask this question: do you guys have these names above a C or better? Who do we have left? We have the Caden Salter, Juju Lewis. We have the Zane Flores, Haas Haney out of Oklahoma State combo. We have the Nico Miracle out of West Virginia. You could say maybe Max Brown's in that race, transfer from Charlotte. Do you have Connor Wigman above a C? Those 4. Where do you guys
I'll give
have
you those 4. Let's give those 4. Where do you have them? Because let's give those 4. I'll go first because I'm not the Big 12 guy, and you can tell me if I'm dumb or not. I have Wigman in the D tier. With the way he played last year, I think he belongs nowhere else. I have Nico at West Virginia in the C tier, so not higher than C. I think there's some potential there, but Lord knows, he played behind a great quarterback. Haas Haney is the one I gave the grade to. I gave him a D. TCU guy, no experience, right? Transfer in. Caden Salter in the combo I have as a C, and that's because of Salter. Let's say Salter's the guy. You can't grade a true freshman coming in based off his high school tape. Salter's the guy. I just don't see him filling the slot that Shedeur Sanders did with all the weapons they lost. So no, the answer to your question is no. I have none of those guys a C or better. So where do you have him, JT? Am I crazy?
No, I didn't consider any of those guys for the B tier. The highest that I actually have on there was Nico out at West Virginia. I kind of thought he showed the best tape out of anybody. But just like you said with Caden Salter, I feel like that's a hot one. I've got him down at the D tier, and that's less about what he's done and more about how I think this season could go for him. Just like you said, with the weapons that they lost out at Colorado and still the questions around the run game and the O-line, I think he could really struggle, and I would not be surprised at all if we see Juju Lewis come in and play there. Looking at some of my other lists, yeah, Connor Wigman I've got as a low C. Don't really have a whole lot of faith around him either, but I do like that Houston situation. I feel like if he can stay healthy for the whole season, he could put up some decent stats, but I don't really think the production matches the hype around him.
Let's stay on Wigman because I'm pretty hand in hand. I have him as a D, Parks. I actually do. In his 5 or 6 starts he's made in the last 2 seasons, you look at the Notre Dame game, obviously an elite defense. He's not going to see anything like that in the Big 12, but there's still some good defenses in this league. He was 11 for 30, 2 picks. He was almost, I mean, he was a 0. He was a negative in that game, made 0 impact. Look at the year prior, throwing 50 passes. They decided to air it out when they played Miami in Coral Gables. And he throws 2 picks, and they kind of lost that game because of that one as well. Defense gave up a lot of points too. I get that. But his best game he had in an A&M uniform was the Missouri game. He was 8-15 for 22, pretty efficient, 20 yards of completion, 270 yards, 0 picks, 0 turn, and 0 touchdowns.
Missouri's defense also sucked.
I think that's where Fritz wants Connor Wigman, is kind of in the Missouri range. We don't want him throwing more than 20, 25 passes. We got to run the football, and you have to take care of the football. He needs to be more of a pocket presence. He can use his legs a little bit, but I think he needs to be efficient, and you can't ask him to go out there in old-style Big 12 and throw the ball 50 times. I don't think you can do that on these Big 12 teams. And the grade and the film that you have right now is anybody with a decent defense. He's just been pretty poor. So I think it's an upgrade from what they had last year in their couple of options in Zion Chris and Donovan Smith, but it's still a D for me out of Connor Wigman.
All right, let's leave those names there. I think one that you may have mentioned that we didn't name off between JT and I. Let's talk about Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati. What grade do you have him at, JT?
I've got him as a C, as like a high-end C. I don't really want that to be disrespectful to him. You could see the way Jake reacted there. I know Jake's
disrespectful.
I know Jake's pretty high on him, probably has him in the B tier, but I don't really see a huge difference between saying someone's like a C plus and a B. I thought he had a good season last year. Cincinnati was a sneaky good team. He was pretty productive all year, but he just wasn't really a guy that when the game mattered and his team really needed him, he's not somebody I'm super comfortable relying on. And that was like in the Iowa State game. When I was there for that, I was never really afraid of, oh no, we're giving the ball back to Sorsby. Hopefully they don't drive it down on us and score, like I was when they were playing like Baylor and they got out to that hot start and playing Texas Tech and Morton and some of those guys. So I just have him a tier below that. So that kind of just has me as a high C for him.
I have him in the C tier as well. I do not have him in the plus. I think he's better than the weapons around him. I think like if he's in a different offense, he's a no question B or A. Like he has a high ceiling. He's 6'3", threw for over 2,800 yards, good touchdown split, kind of 18 touchdowns and 7 picks last year, a decent QBR. Like on paper, it's a good player. But within his system, I don't know if he can be the difference maker and shine enough to make Cincinnati a 9-win football team. So I keep him in the C tier. I think he's middle of the pack because of the system he's in, but a guy with a higher potential than the school he's at. Jake, you got him as a B?
I do. We can go low B. That's fine. What I remember about the Iowa State game was, he had a couple of late turnovers that kind of cost him the game. But I think also some of the play calling stuff kind of limits him too. He had 150 rush yards against Iowa State. And they kind of just, if I remember right, in that fourth quarter, they kind of just stopped running the ball with him and tried to make him throw it. And maybe that was an adjustment by Iowa State, but it just, I think that the play calling needs to be better for him this year. I think he does have. He's one of the better dual threat quarterbacks in this conference. So I think, I don't know, he could still win 7 games in Cincinnati and be a B in my eyes.
Okay, fair enough. Let's leave Sorsby there. Let's go to the next name. One of the more controversial names because of how highly he was touted after his freshman year. All of a sudden, you look down the line, and here we are talking about Jalen Daniels again at Kansas. Where do you have Jalen Daniels ranked? Last year, obviously, the injury involved, 2,400 yards, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a little bit of a letdown for Kansas outside of some late-year wins. Where do you have him, JT?
I have a hard time dropping him below the B range, even though I probably should, just because I know the history that he's had there at Kansas, but he just lacks the consistency, just like we said. That start to the Kansas season last year was so deflating for them, but to see them come back at the end of the year and start to put it together really had an impact on me, especially being at the Iowa State-Kansas game where he just torched the Iowa State defense and seemed like there wasn't anything that he couldn't do out there. I still feel like that's in him. If he can put together a full healthy season, I still feel like he can be a top half quarterback in this league. So I'm just not ready to give up on him and drop him below a B.
I have him as a C, and that's shocking because I'm a guy that's always high on Kansas. But when I think of Jalen Daniels, I think of how much more consistent it felt when Jason Bean was in there for this Kansas team when he went down. He's the highest of high and the lowest of lows, it feels like. Like if the system's working and the first 10 plays that are scripted go well, Jalen Daniels can have a 4 to 5 touchdown game and he'll sling that thing. But when it goes south and he throws that interceptions, it tends to linger, which is why he ends up in the split that he's in. So I feel like it's the tale of two tapes for Jalen Daniels. And for that reason, I got to put him in the middle of the pack. And Lord knows how many games he'll get. He's just getting older. Body ain't getting any younger. So we'll see what we can get out of him. But I have him as a C. What do you think, Jake?
I mean, he's a 6-year guy. He's a C for me. You can't be a 6-year guy. And I mean, I know he's had some injuries in his career, but I think the jig is kind of up on what he can potentially be. I don't think there's any more ceiling conversation with him. I think he's kind of reached the ceiling. I thought he could take that step last year, and it was pretty apparent that he just can't read a defense. I mean, his completion percentage.
He's just slinging that shit, dude. He slings it. It doesn't matter.
It dropped 10% from 2 years ago. I mean, he's 57% completion percentage, and I mean, they had weapons last year, and you could run the football. You had one of the best backs in the conference, and you had Arnold and you had Grimm at receiver, and he still couldn't throw the ball. And yeah, I think it kind of ends up on his shoulders. I just don't know what he could do this year to take Kansas to that next level. They got to run the ball again more efficiently this year.
All right, final 3 names. Let's kind of lump some of them together because they're all going to be around the same mark, I believe. Maybe one on the outlier. Let's talk about the last 3. Let's talk about your guys, Rocco Becht over at Iowa State, along with Sam Levitt at Arizona State, and then to round out the Big 12, Jake Retzloff over at BYU. Let's start with Retzloff because this is where I feel like we can have some differing opinions. Where do you have him? Jake, you go first.
He's a B. He's a B for me. I think he's more of a, as the NFL analysts want to call him, I think he's more of a game manager. No offense to him and his game and what BYU did last year. It's just kind of the style of which that they play. He doesn't seem like an NFL guy to me. I think he could still be good enough, but it kind of feels like a Jalen Daniels kind of thing. Like a lot of expectations now. The bullseye's on your back. I don't see him having a better season than he did last year. I just really don't.
I have him a B as well. I think the interception numbers are apparent there as they are with Hoover and Avery Johnson. Like he had his struggles. It almost gives me the same feeling as and you can speak on this, Jake. Last year, I was not a Garrett Green guy. I knew he had his issues and he was a little overhyped. And this is how I feel about Jake Retzloff. I mean, I think he's a little overhyped. He's high on a lot of people's power rankings, going into his senior year. BYU overplayed expectations last year. So, yeah, why wouldn't he be better and they'd be really good again? I just don't feel like it fits. I have him in the B tier, and it's a strong B, not a B+. What do you think, JT?
I don't have a whole lot to add off of what you two said. I think you said it pretty perfectly. I've got him as a B. I don't really see him improving upon last year, where you were talking about his interceptions issues compared to Avery Johnson or Hoover. I don't really feel like he has the top end passing ability that those guys have. He's not really someone your offense
Oh
relies
yeah,
on.
I'm taking both of them before. Good point.
Yeah, yes, he's a good game manager, and obviously the season that BYU had last year, he's got to have credit for, but I also don't think that was fueled by him by any means. So, yeah, good quarterback, solid, got him in a B.
All right, B's across the board. Let's talk Sam Levitt. I have Sam Levitt on the S tier. It's a guy that I said was one of the most intriguing quarterbacks going into the season. Without the numbers he put up last year, obviously in a college football playoff run and a game they could have won against Texas in the second round. 2,800 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 picks, and an 80, which ranked 9th in the country as a QBR. Yeah, you're one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. His ability to run gives him another look. Big body, can throw the ball consistently, through the deep ball decently well. I think he could take a step up there, but one of the best quarterbacks in the country, let alone the conference. So I have him in the S tier. Where do you have him, Jake?
Yeah, he's S tier for me. I think he could perform at a level at a top 5 quarterback in college football this year. We've seen it at the highest level against Texas in the plays that he was able to make. And another thing we forget, yes, they're losing Cam Scatterbo, but Jordan Tyson is back this year. And having your stud receiver back can just pay off dividends in the long run. I mean, we saw it with the guy we're going to talk about next and his leading receiver that went off to the NFL. It kind of reminds me of the Jaden Higgins, Rocco Beck connection last year. That's what I think Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson could be this year. And that helps for me to put him in the S tier.
Yeah, we'll see what it looks like too without Scatterbo back there. So that's a good point to make. Where do you have him, JT?
I also have him in the S tier. I think last
Unanimous
year
S.
He had the best
S
season in
stands for
the
Sam.
conference. Arizona State had the best season in the conference. I think he was the best quarterback last year. Just like Jake said, the potential that him and Tyson have together. The biggest thing that kind of swung me on Levitt was not only the good season they had, but as the games got bigger towards the end of the season, he lost Tyson and he continued to produce with whatever weapons that he had. Obviously, Scatterbo had great games against Iowa State and Texas, but the toughness that Levitt showed in those 2 games, especially the Texas game, to stay with it and kind of lead that drive down the end of at the end of the fourth quarter to get them in the position that they were in was really surprising for me, and I was really impressed.
All right, save the best for last. Let's have a little conversation about your boy Rocco Beck. Let's talk Iowa State. Where do you have him right now? Unbiasedly, you're looking outside in. Where do you have him, JT? Back to you.
I also have him on the S tier, trying not to seem biased there, but if you're looking at what he's done in his first 2 years as a starter, he hasn't thrown for less than 3,000 yards yet. He's thrown for over 20 touchdowns in both of those seasons, and he's kept his interceptions in the single digits for both of those years. Obviously, he had 2 stud receivers with him, and I am very curious on this season on how that's going to go. But obviously, I've seen a lot of Rocco, but he keeps getting better with every game that he plays is the biggest thing that does it for me. And it's not just with his arm. He's a sneaky good runner, and a lot of his running comes on impact plays when he needs to, on third down or when a play breaks down. So it's not like a design run for him, but he's just really good at keeping plays alive, and I think he's a winning player because of that. So I'm obviously pretty high on him.
Preach!
I have him on the A tier. I think with the weapon he lost, you talked about the connection with Higgins last year. That was a massive part of his success. Obviously, he had some outside of it. I'm not saying that their offense is going to take a massive step back, but losing a piece like that is similar, but not as to the extent as it is feeling for me for Fafita and McMillan. Just because of the way and how many times that connection happened, especially late in games and in big games against Iowa, right? Like plays like that, not having that guy, and not saying nobody can replace him, just makes me question enough to whether or not he can be elite again. And we didn't see that performance in the big game. Like you mentioned about Levitt, JT, like we didn't see that against Arizona State. He made some plays in the bowl game. Miami secondary had problems throughout the entire season. So I have him as an A. He's still a very good quarterback, elite in the conference, top 3, no doubt, probably top 2. But I have him on the A tier. Where do you have him, Jake?
Justin, you convinced me. We're going to go S tier.
Did you have him on A originally, though, before
I
JT
did have
went?
him on A, and I thought about it. And I'm like, the only reason I'm not putting him in the S tier is just because he's losing his top 2 receivers. But that's the point I'm going to make here. I think Rocco Beck doesn't get enough appreciation in this conference among these really good quarterbacks. And I don't think he gets talked about enough. And to be completely honest with you, there were throws last year that Rocco made that it goes unseen. And from the casual eye, from what you look at Rocco Becht, and I thought He's really accurate when he needs to be. And the guy has absolute stones. I mean, what did he do? What was it, 5 game-winning drives he put together last year? Me and Justin had an episode in February where we kind of broke down the Rocco Beck versus Brock Purdy debate. I've said it before. I think if you take away Brock Purdy's NFL career and the recency bias there, I think Rocco Beck is the better Cyclone. I think he's the better quarterback in a Cyclone uniform, and I trust him to be the leader this year and to just continue to make plays down the stretch. He's made more plays in critical moments that I think Brock Purdy made in his career, and that's why I'm really high on him. And I think he'll adjust with whoever's going to be his receiver is next year.
All right, Rocco Beck's official rating, ASS. All right, let's go. I one thing that we forgot to mention. Did we talk about Devin?
Yeah, I was gonna say Utah fans would be very vocal if you.
We're not forgetting about him. He's just saving the best for last, or the middle. A big question for last. Let's talk. Is it Dampier? Right, Dampier.
Yeah, Dampier. Yep.
Okay, let's talk about him. Where do you have him, Jake?
I think this is a good one to bring to make it our last subject, because I think this is the guy that has the most question marks, and also like, what could this be? I think there's a lot of hype going around him. He could be great. He really could. Like, I'm not doing C pluses, so I'll give him a low B. I do think he's got the intangibles to be really good. I just don't know what it's going to look like on a Utah offense. It's going to be something I don't think we've been used to seeing with, Zach Wilson's brother and then Cam Rising when he was healthy. It's going to be a complete – I can't remember his first name. Isaac Wilson.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a completely different look, and I think Utah fans have the right to be excited. But also at the same time, this guy was playing in the Mountain West a year ago, so that's the worst league in college football that I said last year. And I think
no need to diss on the Mountain West like that.
I would just – it's kind of like John Mateer. I know you have really good, skill sets, but let's see you take it up a notch.
We talked about, you briefly mentioned Isaac Wilson, but you would expect Isaac Wilson to have that running factor that we haven't seen from Utah quarterbacks because of, Cam Rising being there for 44 years. But this guy has a running threat and ability to him. So I have him as a C. I think that it's middle of the pack. He's not a D. He's not an F like Wegman that I would consider that as a transfer coming in. I think he has a high ceiling. 12 picks last year obviously raised a question mark, but what wide receivers are you throwing to in New Mexico, brother? So how do you answer that question with a new question is how you got to phrase it. So I think that the potential's there, the ceiling's there, it's high, and the QBR overall is not bad because of the way you can run the football. So it could be a new look to a Utah offense that we've never seen before, and it could be awesome. Where do you have him, JT?
I got him as a C, probably a C plus if you made me choose. I've got him as the highest rated C there. But this is totally the guy, like I was talking about earlier with Sam Levitt, how we had him like down on the bottom coming into last year, and he jumped right to the top. He's Devin's got this potential. I just can't really get over touchdown to interception ratio at the 12-12 there. Still threw for almost 3,000 yards, so that's good. And the biggest thing that worries me as an Iowa State fan is he's coming in with over 1,000 rushing yards last year and 19 touchdowns. If you look at Iowa State's defense last year, that would be an absolute issue for us.
Iowa State don't have to worry about it. We'll be all right.
Yeah, he's a little undersized too. 5'10", 190.
I'm very interested, like you guys said, especially in the Utah offense, to see how this plays out. It can't be worse than what they had. So I trust that coaching staff to get a lot out of him, but I don't really expect him to have huge passing numbers again this year.
All right, that's everything. We graded every quarterback in the Big 12. If you disagree, drop a comment down below. We appreciate you joining us. We ran a little long tonight, so we appreciate you sticking with us. We're talking college football. We can do this all day, all night. We do it all day on Wednesday nights, Tuesdays sometimes, Thursdays. We vary, but we're always here, and we're always talking college football. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Shop No Rivals. Great looking hats, awesome designs, adding teams by the day. Check them out today at shopnorivals.com and use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on all of your premium collegiate headwear. Get your sticker packs live. Hit us in the DMs. We'll get you your 3-pack stickers, $10. You just send us your address. We'll get them sent out to you. Payment through Venmo. All goes back into the production of the show. We love you. We'll see you next time. Jake, take us away.
I was just glad I picked the right outro music. We will see
Nailed
y'all
it.
next week. 100 episodes, a million more to go. Play it.